Hello to all CINEMASTER lovers, hope you enjoy watching. Let's get started. In the beginning of part 2 of the series Zombie Detective, we see the heroine discovers her bunny toy is missing. At the same time, Johnny returns home and finds everything in a mess, and discovers his lighter is missing. We see the heroine's friend holding the lighter and burning the heroine's bunny toy, saying, "After all I did, he's still alive." The mysterious person who was watching the video appears and goes with his friend to Johnny under the pretense that they want to investigate something, but in reality, they're installing a bugging device to frame him, to prove he's not human. Then we see John, who is confused that someone broke into his house and only took the lighter. He assumes someone might know his past and is going crazy thinking about it. Then the heroine discovers that the lighters are missing, and she tells him. He tells people, "What a strange coincidence." She's sure someone took them on purpose and something is up. Later, John is sitting in the garden with the heroine and is surprised when someone approaches him. He grabs his hand tightly and asks him who he is and what he wants. The heroine is startled and separates them, telling John that this is her brother-in-law. They find out he came because the heroine talked a lot about John and he was just curious to see him. He invites John to his son's birthday party, and John agrees. He tries to act naturally so no one suspects him and is happy to be among people, telling himself it's the first time he's felt this way and that he was so happy he felt human. After the party, the heroine gives John a ride home and thanks him for coming. When John returns, heroine's friend Sanj is waiting for him outside and talks to him, asking if he can find someone who's dead. John is surprised by the question, but Sanj laughs and says, "I'm just kidding." But Johnny has sense of smell is not normal. He can smell the lighter and knows Sanj has it. They both fall silent. Suddenly, Sanj breaks the silence and asks John how long he'll pretend not to know him. "If you're involved in the kidnapping case, it's going to be tough for both of us." Suddenly, Sanj laughs and he gets up and leaves, and John is left confused, not knowing who's Sanj. At the same time, the journalist and his friend are eavesdropping using the bug they left in John's house. The journalist says John looks like he's in deep trouble. Then the journalist follows Sanj, who is following John, and gives him a photo to get close to him. He tells him Sanj was following him, and in one of the photos the lighter appears. Now John is sure Sanj knows him. The journalist says, "If you need anything, I'm ready to help anytime," then leaves. John decides to meet Sanj to understand what he wants. He asks if he's the one who killed him. Sanj ignores him and stays silent. John gets closer, grabs him by the throat, and asks again, angry. Sanj stays completely calm, looks at the sea, and says they used to fish together here, but John must have forgotten because of what happened, so he needs to remind him. He takes the lighter out of his pocket, plays with it, and says, "On your birthday, we were planning something." John is confused and asks, "What thing?" Sanj tells him, "You forgot yourself, you're a criminal, by the way," and reveals that John kidnapped a girl and unfortunately killed her. John collapses, hearing that he ruined Sanj's life. Of course, John can't believe what he's hearing and asks, "But who are you?" Sanj says, "I'm your brother." John starts to remember the girl, begging him to save her. He walks away, blaming himself, unable to believe he was that much of a monster. Sanj tells him, "Don't blame anyone." His appearance turns into a zombie because the rain washes off the cream. He looks at the heroine from afar and refuses to go home, telling himself, "I can't live after learning this filthy truth about myself." He tries to end it all by drilling into himself, but it doesn't work. He thinks of another way, electricity, but that doesn't work either. The next day, he tries to enter a dangerous area, hoping something from underground will get him, but the heroine's brother-in-law sees him and stops him, talking to him. John walks away to get away from his nagging and sits thinking about what to do. He wonders, why is this so hard? At the same time, Sanj's wife asks if the young man she saw with him yesterday was John. He tells her John is dead, not to mention him again. At that moment, the heroine comes and talks to Sanj, telling him she found information about the kidnapping case from a year ago. She pulls out a flash drive and says it has a picture of the kidnapper. She admits she hasn't seen it yet and wants to look at it with him. Sanj gets nervous, grabs a hammer to hit her, but she notices, throws water in his face and runs, locking the door behind her. She begs Sanj's wife to call the police. The wife pretends to agree, but hits her on the head, knocking her out. When the heroine wakes up, she finds herself tied up. Sanj tells her, "By the way, my hand isn't broken. I made my wife do that so I could get out of the investigation. Because if you try to investigate, you'll find out things about me I don't want you to know." He leaves her tied up and they eat next to her, completely. She takes advantage of their distraction and tries to free herself. She manages to do it, but unfortunately, Sanj's wife sees her and attacks her. They fight, but the heroine defeats her and escapes. As she's running, someone appears and grabs her. She gets scared and screams, but she is reassured when she finds John. She starts talking to him and tells him that San and his wife turned out to be criminals and were involved in the kidnapping case. Suddenly, she loses consciousness and they tell the police about San and his wife. They immediately arrive to arrest them, but they arrest San's wife because unfortunately, her husband runs away when he sees them coming from afar. In the police station, John hears the testimony of San's wife who talks about everything that happened and now understands that San laughed at him and was thinking that he was the criminal, but John turned out to be innocent. He calls him and asks him about the truth, so Sanji tells him if he wants to meet up, and they discuss Sanji's illnesses. The officer interrogates her, and she tells him, by the way, I can't have children, so the girl we supposedly kidnapped, I just wanted to raise her, to consider her like my daughter. We go back to John, who goes to meet Sanji. He calls him and tells him she's inside the car, and when he opens the car door, it explodes. It becomes clear that Sanji was planning his death. Sanji looks at him and says death is better than life, then leaves. John looks at the burning car and remembers the little girl when she told him she wanted her father. On the same day he saw her tied up, and when he tried to save her, someone hit him on the head, and he lost consciousness. He realizes that Sanji tricked him and that he wasn't the one who killed the girl. Now we go to Sanji, who is talking to his mother and tells her that everything is over. Suddenly, he finds John in front of him and is shocked, asking, "How are you still alive?" John beats him up and asks why he's doing this. Sanji laughs slyly and says, "All this is because of you, because you were looking for the girl. If you hadn't come, we would have been living happily. I wanted her to be my daughter." He beats him, takes his mother and leaves. Suddenly, John gets up and says, "A year ago, you caused my death, and now it is time for revenge." Sanji is stunned and points a gun at him, but the bullets do nothing. Suddenly, their mother stands in front of John, recognizes him, and calls his name, but unfortunately, she dies afterward. John collapses in grief. Sanji takes advantage of the opportunity and escapes. He attends the funeral, sad for his mother. The heroine tries to comfort him, but he tells her he must take revenge on his brother. She tries to talk to him, but he stays silent, ignores her, walks away, and is devastated and sad. All his memories come back to him, and he decides to go take care of their old house. There, he finds a stranger living there and asks him what he wants. The man tells him he has the wrong address, so he leaves. He goes to sit in the park, looks at his mother's picture, and says he's now alone without her. He walks around like a homeless person, keeps looking at the chickens in the market, and says he hates himself because he always craves meat. He decides to avoid it completely and starts eating insects, anything to fill his hunger, but it doesn't satisfy him. He blames himself because he still wishes he could eat even a piece of meat from any corpse. At night, he loses control and walks the streets looking for any meat. He returns home in a terrible state. Suddenly, the door knocks, so he pretends not to be home, but notices that the person outside is trying to open the door, which is weak and opens easily. It's the heroine's brother-in-law. John welcomes him after putting on some cream. We learn that he's a director and wants to talk to John about making a zombie series, and wants John to play the lead role because he thinks he's perfect for it. He starts imagining John in the role. John tells him, "No, sorry, if you don't leave now, I might hurt you because you don't know what I'm resisting right now." The man gets scared and runs away. John then sees a boy standing at the door and gets nervous because he thinks of attacking him. Then his neighbor comes and tries to talk to him, but he ignores her and closes the door. Later, the heroine visits John and talks to him. He tells her that his desire to eat humans increases every day and asks her to help him, saying he doesn't want to live like this. She promises to help him and starts searching online for information that might help him understand how to deal with his hunger. The next day, she goes to him, ties him up, and puts a camera in the house, telling him she will record everything he does for 3 days, because she thinks that's the best way. She waits to see what happens when he gets hungry. Suddenly, the door knocks, and it's the officer who says he wants to talk to John. She lies and says he traveled to America and waits outside. The first, second, and third days pass, and when the days end, she goes in to see what happened. She finds that John has transformed, and his condition is so bad that he no longer recognizes her. He tries to attack her and approaches, but she hits him on the head with a tray. When he wakes up, he asks, "What's going on?" She says, "I found a way to control you. Every time you try to attack me, I'll hit you. But we need a better solution because I can't keep hitting you every time. We go to the prison and see the head of the organization cursing John, saying, "I'll see you soon." A prisoner next to him hears and asks how he knows the detective. We learn that today is his release date, and it looks like this prisoner is up to something big. He even promises the detective that he'll get revenge on him. We go to the journalist, sitting with his friend, who is shocked when he sees the criminal in front of him. He says, "I was really sad when you went to prison." The criminal looks at Johnny, who was in front of him, and says, "I heard some rumors about him in prison, and I wanted to see for myself." We learn that the criminal's name is Kim, and once he saved the journalist, so the journalist owes him, and does whatever he asks. Kim asks him to follow John and watch all his actions. He hides in a box so John won't see him. Children sees them and says, "What's this?" Boxes are moving, and chases them. At the same time, the heroine asks about Kim and learns that he was imprisoned for illegally disposing of waste. She finds out that he adopts and raises animals. She and John go to the animal shelter because his name is written in the detective's house. All this time, the journalist is following them and taking pictures, showing them to Kim, who says, "Looks like he committed another crime." We go back to the heroine, who is watching a video of Kim's arrest. Someone tells her he's a despicable person who committed countless crimes, and pretends to be a good person who cares for animals. Later, John meets the director again, who tries to persuade him about the series, and tells him about its terrifying events to get him interested. But John is not interested at all and ignores him. When he returns home, he finds the journalist and his friend have cut the electricity and are hiding to search the house, but the electricity comes back on, and they get shocked by the amount of electricity. John wakes up and finds them startled, asking them, "What were you up to?" The journalist nervously tells him, "We just drank too much. That's why we got confused about the houses," so he lets them go even though he knows they're lying. He tells the heroine, "I'm sure Kim is behind them," and asks her to gather information. The heroine goes to meet a woman responsible for animal welfare, and she tells her, "By the way, Kim is a deceitful, violent beast, despite what you know. But the animals he collects, unfortunately, he gets rid of them at night." John finds someone breaking into his house and attacking him, wearing a clown mask. John grabs him and gives him a good beating, then pulls off the mask and is surprised to find it's the journalist. He asks him who sent him, but he refuses to. Suddenly, John gets angry and starts turning into a zombie. John is about to eat him, but restrains himself at the last moment and runs out. As he's running, he bumps into the heroine, and she runs after him too. The next day, John wakes up and asks her if he ate the journalist. She tells him he managed to stop himself, but he's upset that he's still thinking about eating human. The heroine tells him that at least he tries to restrain himself, and tells him she discovered that Kim is not a normal person but an animal. She's sure Kim is behind a lot of trouble. He suspects the detective was investigating Kim, which is why he got rid of him. They search the detective's office and find a bunch of photos. John says the place in the photo is where he woke up and found himself. From the papers, they discover Kim is conducting experiments on animals to turn people into zombies. He tells her he must have been one of Kim's experiments, which is why the detective opened his case, because the detective discovered his experiments had succeeded and knew John had turned. So he tried to cover for him. "We need to make sure Kim is the reason I am like this." They decide to go to the journalist, who must know something. The journalist is still traumatized, telling his friend about John's terrifying look and glowing eyes at night. Suddenly, John appears in front of him. He asks John, "What do you want from me?" John says, "I'm not here to hurt you, but on one condition. Tell me everything you know about Kim." The journalist says, "I first met Kim 5 years ago when he was investigating a case of someone killing people," and he starts to change the subject. John gets annoyed and leaves. After that, the journalist takes his friend and sneaks into the lab where Kim does his experiments. They are shocked by what they see. The subjects look like they've been through tough experiments and turned vicious. They notice a large cage and approach. Suddenly, someone appears near the cage, and they start crying from fear. They fall to the ground, terrified, as Kim watches them coldly. When they wake up, they find themselves tied up and see Kim carrying John. He keeps staring at them as they imagine what Kim might do to them. John wakes up confused about how he got there, and asks Kim, "Why did you kill the detective?" Kim tells him, "Mind your own business. But I'm proud you reached this level. Honestly, I'm happy with what I've achieved. You walk and act like a human. You're a zombie, but have senses and think like a normal person." John gets angry and tells him he's crazy. After Kim leaves, John manages to untie himself and frees the journalist, who thinks John is going to eat him, but realizes he's good and tells him, "Let's escape quickly." John is shocked when he sees the person locked in the cage and realizes he's not the only zombie. Suddenly, gas spreads in the lab and they all lose consciousness again. John wakes up, tied up even more than before, and sees Kim sitting in front of an unconscious woman. Kim tells her that the zombie is proof he's sorry, that all this was to bring his wife back from the dead. He actually managed to bring her back, but as a zombie, he was experimenting on humans and animals to try to turn her back into a normal human. All this time, John is thinking about his unknown fate with this madman. Suddenly, the heroine calls out to him, telling him she's been searching for him for a long time until she finally found his location. She unties the journalist and his friend. While the heroine tries to untie John, the journalist sees a box labeled with things related to the animals used in the experiments and is shocked to find his beloved dog's collar. He gets angry and goes to attack Kim, grabbing and choking him. Kim tells him, "You were just a hunting dog, collecting the information I wanted." Back to the heroine, she's still trying to untie John, who tells her Kim did all these experiments because of his wife, who turned into a zombie. Suddenly, Kim's wife approaches the heroine. John tells her not to move, unties his hand and pulls her away. He tries to communicate with Kim's wife, thinking maybe she can control herself, as he did, and didn't eat any humans. But she ignores him and attacks the journalist. The box and medicines fall on her, and she dies. Kim, upon seeing this, collapses and keeps looking at her, screaming that he wanted her to stay with him, whether as a zombie or a human. After that, the journalist is taken to the hospital, and Kim is arrested. John is happy to finally be rid of him, but is surprised when the officer tells him he's under arrest for impersonating a detective. At that moment, he gets a call and learns Kim killed the officer who arrested him, and escaped. He quickly handcuffs John and leaves him in the car to check what happened. Of course, John frees himself. The next day, the journalist wakes up and sees the news that Kim killed the officer and escaped, and is afraid Kim might come after him for revenge, since he was the reason for what happened to Kim's wife. He goes to the police station to ask for protection, but is refused, being told he's not important enough for Kim to care about. The journalist returns home, scared, and takes precautions in case Kim attacks him. The next day, the journalist meets the heroine and John, and learns from them that Kim turned himself into a zombie. The heroine tells them Kim was definitely into taxidermy, and will surely come back to take his wife, so they decide to go to the morgue to get her. So they start making their plan, and John pretends to be a corpse, and they take him like that and enter normally, and everyone acts completely natural. The corpse is going to the morgue, but what they were afraid of actually happens. Kim is there, looking terrifying, and he asks John, "Where is my wife?" John tells him he should go to hell so he can see her there. A fierce battle breaks out between them, each trying to show off his skills, but unfortunately it ends with Kim kidnapping the heroine and running away with her. John goes after him to get the heroine back, but then the officer appears and wants to arrest him, so he attacks him and locks him in the ambulance, then goes to look for the heroine, guessing that Kim will take her to his lab, and that's exactly what happened. He finds them there and talks to Kim, telling him it's impossible to bring a dead person back to life no matter what. He starts fighting him, takes the heroine, and leaves. Suddenly the officer appears and points his gun at Kim, but he gets terrified when he sees his appearance, so Kim takes advantage of the moment and attacks him. At that moment, John arrives and pulls Kim away from the officer. The officer tries to untie the heroine, and John tells Kim that he regrets making his wife suffer and turning her into a zombie just to keep her by his side. "But now I can stop you," Kim tells him. "By the way, you can't kill me." At that moment, the journalist and his friends appear, throwing masks to John and the others. After putting on the masks, they throw gas grenades, but they don't affect Kim. The journalist grabs him and tries to eat him, but John shoots him and finally gets rid of him. That's his. John talks to the heroine before returning to the forest, telling her he wants to stay away from humans because he's fed up with their lives and can't go on living as if he's a human. The heroine tries to convince him otherwise, but she respects his wish and says goodbye to him sad. A year later, we see the journalist and his friend after they've opened the office they always dreamed of. They remember John and say he left a void after his absence. He used to fill their lives, and they were always following him. They point to the heroine, who has taken the detective's office since he had no heirs, and she has decided to work as a detective. She thinks about John and hopes he's doing well. At night, she goes to a costume party with her friend and is surprised to see him there. He tells her he came to the party to interact with people for a change instead of staying alone in the forest. The heroine asks him if he's in a relationship and he says, "Who would date a zombie?" He gives her a picture of someone and asks her to help him find him. Suddenly, they hear someone screaming, and the heroine looks at John. He tells her, "Look, I'm not going to help you, I'm not working as a detective anymore. She tells him that if he comes back to work as a detective, she'll help him find the man he's looking for. He says, "How much will you give me from the fame?" Then he goes to see what's happening and finds a new murder scene. He says, "Let's get back to work." And that's where the series ends. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an